So welcome to my allotment. Today I'm going to be focusing on my squashes and courgettes and some of the common problems that people are talking about. So powdery mildew, the leaves look like they're dying, lack of production of the fruits on there, you know, no courgettes or squashes, or they're dying off when they've not fully formed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how I look after mine, and that will help you get better production. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment, and also my home kitchen. Now it's the end of August, we're coming into September, and you see a lot of common problems happening. It happens to me every year, it happens to most people. I think it's actually completely normal and it's nothing to worry about, but there are some things you can do to carry on getting some excellent courgettes and for your squashes to start to ripen. Now most of it is to do with the with the leaves, so it's a question of defoliating and to know when to defoliate. With the courgettes, people often think that when they start to look like this, that's it, they're done, I'll rip them up. Well, that's not the case. You just need to defoliate properly and you will get more courgettes. You might not get the quantity of courgettes that you were getting earlier in the season, and quite honestly you probably don't want that many anyway, because if you're like me, you've had tons and tons and tons, but you will still and should still get courgettes right up until the frost, when the frost will literally just kill the plant. With the squashes, you're defoliating to help the plants, to help the fruits ripen, because the sooner they ripen, the sooner you can eat them, and the better they'll keep if they're ripened more, because they will naturally cure the skins. So if we start off first with the courgettes and what we're doing here, now what you're seeing is the leaves are either just naturally dying off, or you're getting a little bit of powdery mildew. Now what you're looking for is you're looking for new growth. Now this is the new growth, which means I only picked a couple of courgettes off here a couple of days ago. You can see there are little courgettes forming on the new growth. Now you defoliate for two reasons. One, because you want to just get rid of all the dead leaves, then it helps them grow. It gets rid of the powdery mildew and stops it from spreading, and taking off the leaves for courgettes also helps with pollination, so the pollinators can get to your to the blooms to be able to pollinate, so that your fruits form. And that's where you get like blossom end rot, a little bit like what you get with tomatoes. If they're not pollinated, then they won't grow into full courgettes. So that's another good reason to remove the leaves. Now the leaves we're removing are literally the dead ones. You know, they serve no purpose. They spread disease, they stop good airflow, and you know, they're taking up precious nutrients that actually the new growth needs. So you can pretty much give it a really drastic haircut. Now I know this seems really drastic. It's a bit like when you're pruning your tomatoes this time of year. You think, you know, this is going to kill it. It will not kill the plant. But what you obviously don't want to do is you don't want to cut the stem with the new growth on it. I know that seems really obvious, but all you want is the new growth. You can be really brutal with this and take off pretty much all of the dead. You know, and if yours haven't died back as much as this, just give them a little bit of a haircut. But I promise you, what you are looking out for is any new growth. Now that might spread into a new growth, so I'm going to leave that there. I don't think it will. I think it probably isn't, but I'm just gonna err on the side of caution. So as you're cutting, do make sure you're just taking the leaves off and you're not actually taking off the new shoot that's coming out and producing the courgettes. So I will do the rest of my courgettes later, and I will now move on to the squashes. Now, as we move over to the squashes, it's a different reason why you're pruning these. One, take off some of the dead leaves because you don't want the powdery mildew to spread. But the other reason you're doing it is because you want the fruits to ripen. Now, I actually think the leaves flopping down like this is almost like a natural way of opening it up so that the squashes do ripen. But again, if you've got any weeds that are in the way, just move them out the way, because these need to be much darker yellow before you would want to eat them. So I see too many people harvesting their squashes far too early. While you can cut them off early and cure them yourself, in my experience it's far easier to let nature do it for you. If you leave them on the vine, for the sun to naturally cure them on the vine, and when the vine dies off and starts to go like very hard and almost woody, which you're going to be more like towards the end of September into October, that's when I cut mine off, and I'll show you when I get to that stage. But when they're really green like this, the only time I would cut one of these off is if it looked like it was ripe enough and I was going to eat it straight away, because otherwise it won't keep very well, and if you don't store it properly you're going to lose it, and you're going to be really sad that you lost all of your precious crop because you were too impatient to get it off. Now again, this isn't anywhere near coloured up enough, this leaf here, so what I can do is, look, I can just take the leaves off in and around it, so that more sun gets to this, so that it will be in a position where hopefully, you know, in September I might be able to eat a few. But you really do have to be a little bit patient with it, because if you start eating the squashes when they're not ready, they're not so nice, they're not sweet. The sun needs to naturally, it's a bit like your tomatoes, you wouldn't eat them green, you know, you've got to wait for them to ripen up. They're very different to courgettes. You know, courgettes you literally pick them when they're big enough. Squashes, you do need to leave them for the sun to naturally cure them, and you do of course need to still be feeding them. Now I've got my own comfrey feed which I'm going to be feeding mine with today, giving them a good feed, and obviously keep watering them. If you haven't got a comfrey feed, then obviously use a tomato feed's very good, because obviously it promotes all the things you want it to promote. I will put a link for the comfrey feed, so that if you've not done that and you want to do it either this year or start prepping yourself ready for next year, so you can watch that for yourself, to obviously to grow your own feed. It's not only very cheap, but it's also much better for the environment and for your pocket and for the plants. So yes, I'm quite excited this year, I've got to say. I've got quite a lot of squashes, so I'm very impatient to eat them, but I can't yet. I do hope that's given you lots of useful information on how to look after your squashes and courgettes, so you'll get a bumper harvest of courgettes right up until the frost, and when you can harvest your squashes, they will keep all through the winter to serve you right through to the spring.